Friday morning. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
I was wondering what sort of an effort you'd make. That is
It's not bad, is it?
exceptional. No, it's good. Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Where to care,
I
obviously.
couldn't get a jumper to fit me, so I got the hat.
No, I think you get nod of the morning with all that. I don't know where to jump in here. We'll start with Munster Clermont at the weekend. We might start with the fact, Quinny, that another game went awry last night with what was a battle. La Rochelle has been pulled, and there's been a couple of other games that are in Munster, Connacht and Ulster's extended group, obviously, as well, that have fallen by the wayside. In Exeter and Glasgow, obviously playing last weekend, and now both of those are out, and it seems like 5 points are going to go to their opponents. We might just start off there, and the impact, probably going to be an unfair impact that might have on the likes of Munster, Connacht and Ulster over the course of this.
Yeah, it is. I think it's not ideal. It's only round two coming up this weekend, but it could have a bearing right at the end, and an unfair bearing, really, depending on what they decide. If, the team that couldn't fulfill the fixture obviously is going to be punished. So you'd love to see these fixtures played again, but for obvious reasons, I think it's you can't find weekends or opportunities to play them unless they're played within the Six Nations window and stuff like that. But you want to try and get your quarterfinals and get the 4 pool rounds done and know who's moving forward to quarterfinals. So it could work in their favour or against them, really. But ultimately, I think it'll be unfair on somebody.
I personally can't wait to see Munster play Harlequins again. Danny Kerr this week said, we thought we were playing PSG a couple of times at the weekend, but all the rolling around and diving and complaining. If you were in that Munster dressing room and saw those comments, Alan, how pissed off would you be?
Well, you've got to be careful, I think, because not to react to them publicly. I think definitely internally, it's something that you want to kind of push back and rub back in their faces when you meet them again. I remember we played Northampton, I think it was 2009 or 10 with Munster, and we had a lot of verbals and a lot of they beat us over there, very good Northampton side, and we got them back in Thomond Park and we tried to avenge it. We only won 12-9 barely in the last pool game, but I remember we met them in the quarterfinals and beat them 45-9 or something like that. And when you get into a situation like that, you can rub it back in their faces. But ultimately, I agreed with Conor Murray. You can't react too much with it. I think he came out yesterday or the day before and said, look, a lot of stuff does get said in podcasts that maybe it's a bit looser, but I look back at the game and I couldn't see where Munster were diving and behaving like soccer players, if you like. So I think it was a bit extreme what he was saying. Everybody could see what Tom Brandt did to Ben Healy and what Joe Marler did, and he's picked up an injury. The Marler one didn't look as impactful, but he was, you could see him grimacing a little bit after that, Ben Healy, and he's a big fella himself, but I think the comments were silly, to say the least, because you kind of give the opposition motivation. So if I was in the dressing room, I'd certainly be looking to go after Danny Kerr, not individually, but beat him well over there and give him a good hiding in Harlequins, which is not going to be that easy to do. But certainly it'll be a motivating factor for Munster.
It's just slightly shocking to me almost that you, having looked back at the game, that there wasn't a huge amount in it, that he might be referring to those big hits as dives, given everything that's gone on over the last number of weeks.
Yeah, it was. Look, he to be fair to him, he's a good bloke and he's a nice fella and he's a good player and he's done really well. I was just a little bit surprised, but as Conor did say, these podcasts can get a little bit loose and they can have a bit of banter. I'm sure there was, in every game you play now, there's people calling for the referee and saying offside, and he grabbed my hand in a line out and he shouldn't be there, and trying to get into the referee's ear. That happens out in the rugby pitch a lot. So maybe there was a bit of that going on Saturday, but he was talking about the linesmen as well, that they were biased and the 50-50 decisions went against them. Ultimately, Harlequins' discipline was shocking, really. And, you know, I played against Paul Gustard a fair bit. He was the defensive coach for a number of years. He's their head coach there now. He was with Saracens as well, coaching. And he was fuming after the game. And I know he would be the type of fella he is. And so their discipline was really, really poor. And I was surprised. You know, they're two obvious late hits. You know, Joe Marler had one earlier on Stander where he tackled him without the ball, and he was penalised for that. But given everyone the conversations you say, Adrian, about in the last week or two about the concussion situation, Steve Thompson and all the other players taking a case against World Rugby, and it was surprising that he came out saying that.
It might be an opportunity now over the next couple of weeks, kind of separate to this conversation, to see a couple of the other younger players that you've been talking about quite a bit from Munster, like we're talking about Jack Crowley, Jake Flannery. How excited should we be to see these guys over the next little while?
Yeah, well, they're two very, very talented players. Jack Crowley, obviously, this year in the 20s, he was playing really well for him, and Jake Flannery, who can play fly half, full back, wing. You know, they're two very exciting young players, and Munster have been crying out for these kind of young fellas to come through, and you never know until they take the next step up to the next level. I always said this when I played with Munster. You know, I saw someone like Dennis Leamy coming through, started training with Munster, and immediately I said, this guy's going to make it, not just with Munster, with Ireland. Keith Earl's the same. So you look at young players and you think, what kind of attitude? Obviously, they have quality and talent, and how will they cope mentally with the step up, and can they develop? And I think, you know, what I'm hearing out of the Munster camp is these two boys are developing really well, and their attitudes are right, and they're learning a lot. And Stephen Larkin was talking about that. So they're very talented players, Jake Flannery and Jack Crowley, and hopefully they will, you know, get a chance now in the next few weeks in the Interpros and get an opportunity to play on a strong Munster team, not on a completely changed Munster team. You want to try and protect them a little bit, and the best way of protecting them is putting strong players out with them. But hopefully we'll see a lot more of these guys going forward.
Healy obviously is another one of those that's jumped onto the scene over the last while, and everybody's now totally focused on what he's going to do with himself next. And he's obviously out for the Clermont game, having picked up that shoulder knock last weekend. Reports seem to step up a little bit during the week, Quinny, in that Glasgow have now sold off their first choice out half, and they're a bit more dialed in to making sure they get Ben Healy. What are you hearing, or what do you expect to happen?
I'm not really hearing anything. And as I said to you before, I don't expect him to go. I think it would be. It could work both ways. It could be a great move for him or a dangerous move. I think if he wants to play for Ireland and keep developing, I think he's got to be patient. And you know, he'll want to get his agent or whoever looks after him will want to get him a full-time Munster contract and come out off an academy contract. So I'm sure Munster will try and do that. Obviously, if he wasn't getting bumped up to a senior Munster contract, well, then he's a fair argument to start looking at the financial side of it. You know, things can change very quickly, but I'd be surprised if that move happened. I think he's got a great opportunity, and you know, working with someone like Stephen Larkham is a great opportunity for him to learn off one of the greatest fly halves that has ever played the game. Really, Larkham was just a phenomenal player. So I think he's in a good place, and he's developed really well, and obviously he's got to go on to the next level as well. But I don't expect to see him going anywhere.
Yeah, it'd be an awful kick in the stones from Munster. Like, it'd be an awful indictment of their ambition if they were to let him off.
Yeah, look, they have to try everything to keep him, and the challenge obviously is financially trying to keep everybody. So will you have the same situation with Jake Flannery and Jack Crowley? If they get a number of matches this year, will other clubs try and poach him? It could happen. So can you keep 4 or 5 fly halves in your squad? Probably not. Can you pay them all, have them all on full-time contracts? Probably not. So it's a problem that may arise from, but maybe it's a good problem because they haven't had that situation in a number of years.
You could give Leinster back one of their out halves. That might help relief.
Yeah, it could happen, but we got to see him back played first.
I know.
But I think that the key here is, and the way the game has gone now, obviously Munster have been crying out for that development of fly halves, but these guys can play another position, centres, full-back. They're multi-talented, and that seems to be the case for the modern players. You saw Joey Carberry doing that with Leinster for a number of years as a full-back and doing it brilliantly. So Jake Flannery, he's played in the under-20s at full-back when Ben Healy was fly-half. So being able to do that would be a real strength for these guys coming through.
Yeah, it's a mad scenario that suddenly we're talking about the backlog of class out halves and how we maybe try to change the style of Irish rugby to make sure that we can sort of keep them all happy. Leinster Saints this weekend, Quinny, as well, was obviously one of the other ones we wanted to touch on. Northampton beaten by Leinster obviously twice last year. They've been beaten in round one. They're already talking about resting some of the frontliners. It's almost a bit of a shame of this new temporary format that it feels like they're maybe already resigning to themselves that they're out and just waving the white flag almost before the game even begins.
That is a shame, and Chris Boyd spoke last week after they were beaten by Bordeaux like it was a freak try that cost them the game. It came back off the post and Bordeaux scored a try and they win the game. It is a shame when you hear them talking like that they're going to send over a second string team or a weakened side. Maybe he said it at the time and maybe their approach would be different, but I think after what happened to him last year in the two pool games where Leinster just blew him away, destroyed him, that he probably sees, even with a full strength side going to Dublin, it's not going to work for him. So in some sense of the words, you can't blame him because he's got to protect his players and they'll probably just focus on the Premiership now. But I'm doing the game tomorrow, and I was excited a few weeks ago when I got that fixture and I got the games we were doing this weekend, and it's hard to get excited about it now, but you never know. Young players can come into a squad and perform really well, but you just think the level Leinster are at and the way they played last week in Montpellier, that they're in the driving seat, and they certainly won't give Northampton a sniff of it tomorrow if they can manage that. That's the mentality at home, and they won't take their foot off the gas if they get an opportunity. But hopefully Northampton turn up and that they give Leinster a game and that we have a good game there.
Connacht against Bristol is 5:30 on Sunday. The return of Pat Lam and John Muldoon in tow as well. How much would you like to see Pat Lam come back and coach within Ireland again at some point, at any level really? I'm not sure where it might happen, but how much do you think that might happen and should happen in the future?
Well, I don't know about should. I think it may happen. I like Pat Lam a lot. I think what he did in Connacht was phenomenal. He's very popular. Really had a real connection with the fans in the sports ground, and they did a wonderful job. Given what winning that Pro 14 was just an incredible achievement. Given what happened and the perception of Connacht before he came on board, and the difficult times that they've experienced and not winning trophies, not being at the top table, that was an incredible step forward. A number of his players went on to go to South Africa after that, get capped for Ireland. So the work he did and the rest of the people in Connacht, in fairness, was phenomenal. So I think he has that ability to really motivate guys and get the best out of players and have a real feel-good factor in a group. So the hands-on coaching stuff, I don't know, is that what he's doing in Bristol now? Is he just managing the whole rugby program there? But again, Bristol seem to like him. The players seem to like him a lot. So he has that ability to bring a feel-good factor to a group. So yeah, I'd love to see him back. I don't know, is it a must to bring him back? But I'd love to see him back involved because, he had a wonderful impact with Connacht.
Where would he go if he were to come back? What would be the like?
Well, it depends. I think there was talks of him getting involved with Ireland and being the next Ireland coach when Joe Schmidt would leave, and he obviously left and went to Bristol. And so I don't know. He could go to any of the provinces really. I think nearly all the provinces would be very keen and interested in Pat Lam if he became available, whether it was a head coach or a forwards coach or whatever. So. It depends, because being a coach he could have a bad run with Bristol with a very good team, and then the perception changes, and it's a cutthroat business. He had a very disappointing spell in Auckland, and Connacht and coming to Ireland seemed to rejuvenate him and getting back on track, and got that opportunity in Bath. So you never know; it can change very, very quickly. If he went on to win a European Cup or something with Bristol, or win the Premiership next year, his profile and perception, you know, accelerates higher again. So it's all about timing. So I don't know. It's kind of, but I think there would definitely always be an interest here, given what he did with Connacht.
Quinny, good stuff. Enjoy the games over the weekend.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks a million. Alan Quinlan on the line as always on a Friday to look ahead to the weekend's rugby.